There's a stereotype of Southerners that poisons any debate, such as the ongoing controversy over the removal of Confederate statues. It's an unflattering image made up of illiteracy, poverty, inbreeding, and of course everybody's favorite, racism. And it's not an image that wins much support from the public, particularly in the North, of course. This preconception of white Southerners is in itself racist, but that's lost on most people. There are so many wrong impressions about the Confederate cause that one hardly knows where to begin, but here's a little fact that will be of some interest. General Robert E. Lee, one of the best-known personalities in the War of Succession, owned no slaves until he gained some upon marrying his wife. He set them free. General Ulysses S. Grant, Lee's northern counterpart, owned slaves before and during and after the war. Lincoln's famous Emancipation Proclamation only freed slaves in the states making up the Confederacy. Slavery continued in the Union. When Grant was asked why he had not freed his slaves, he responded with a line that has become a part of the American English lexicon. Good help is hard to find. So, whose statue gets taken down because of its connections to slavery? Why, Lee's, of course. I have not heard any clamor to place Grant's statues somewhere where people cannot see them. But for all my friends who live in the states that were in the Union and who had ancestors who fought to free the slaves, or some of the slaves, it's time to realize something very important. Being a Confederate is no longer about where you live or even on which side your ancestors fought. You can be from Ohio or Pennsylvania or New York, because what is now happening in New Orleans and elsewhere in the South is your battle too. The same interests that are demanding an ISIS-like erasure of history when it comes to the statues of Confederate heroes are the same forces tightening the leftist and globalist stranglehold on y'all up in the North, and those of you out west, and those of you from coast to coast and around the world. They're the people who believe that racism must be extinguished, even if it means white people need to be extinguished. The same people who attribute white success to white privilege. The people who think that black lives matter, but blue ones not so much. The people who want more immigration for the precise reason that it will ensure a non-white majority in America. The same people who hide their faces behind masks while suppressing free speech in Berkeley or New Orleans or Washington, D.C. or Portland, Oregon, or a multitude of other places. These people are not just after Southerners. They're after you too. The establishment has to break the spirit of the South for three reasons. Number one, we're seen as consciously white, and that's no longer acceptable in America. Never mind that there are more than a few black supporters of the Confederate monuments and flag, and that in fact almost half of the blacks in one survey in the South favored keeping the statues of our heroes. On to reason number two. The conservative culture of the South, which, while still affected by the neo-Marxist degeneracy sweeping across our nation, is largely a bastion of traditional values such as hard work, family, and hospitality to all, regardless of color. But the big reason the South has to be broken is number three. The leftists can't forget that from 1861 to 1865, men of the South actually took up arms and fought valiantly against the government ensconced in Washington, D.C. You fought all the way, Johnny Reb. Traitorous politicians who are literally in collaboration with wretches like Antifa and the various left-wing so-called civil rights groups, to include the ones like the Coalition for Black Lives that capitalize black and brown when describing race, but put white in lowercase. Yes, those kind. They are determined to drive old Dixie down. Well, to hell with them. My friends, if your Union ancestors were alive today, they would stand alongside us as we fight this tyranny that threatens us all in the North and the South and in the East and in the West. In the early 20th century, the survivors of Pickett's charge at Gettysburg and of the survivors among the Union soldiers who had defended against them that fateful day, met to recreate that attack under the rolling cameras of history. As the now elderly Confederate veterans struggled across the field that had played such an important role in their youth, the men in the Union positions stood up, rushed across the gap separating them, and tearfully embraced their former foes. I ask you to do the same and stand alongside us as we fight the battles of the Wolf Age. We are all Confederates now. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to my channel, like this video, and share it among your friends, or your enemies for that matter. Stephen McNallen, signing off for now.